who covers the Chicago Bears and the Chicago White Sox for WGN News out in Chicago. Speaking of Grand Valley State University, he is an alum as well. Please welcome to the show, Eli. And by the way, I'm going to try and pronounce his last name. Eli, call me out if I absolutely butcher this. Eli Ong. Is that how you pronounce it? I think it is. Welcome in,
Yes,
Eli.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is. Can you guys hear me okay right now?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm perfect.
Awesome. Cool. Pleasure to meet you guys. Pleasure to be on the show. Yeah, go ahead.
No problem. I want to say thank you for coming on the show. I'm glad I got your last name right. People, I get called Iafrate, all this stuff. So I understand. I completely relate to you. But Eli, I want to ask you, okay, and I'm just going to start it with this. All right, and we talk about a lot on the show. Obviously, Chicago Bears. We're a Detroit-based show, so we talk a lot about the Lions. And I've been a big Caleb. Notice I've been a big Caleb Williams fan. Okay, because he's a player that I've loved watching in college. Unlucky for me, he lands in Chicago in the NFC North, so now it's a little awkward, Eli. But I want your thoughts on just what Ryan Poles has done for the Bears. I think he's been, I would assume, a breath of fresh air for a lot of Bears fans. But what'd you make of the draft and what Caleb Williams can be in this division with some new quarterbacks, at least with Minnesota and Chicago?
So what I see from Caleb Williams, he's kind of like a departure from what the Bears had in Justin Fields. For those that are familiar with Justin Fields, he was very even-keeled, even demeanor. He never was up high or down low. What you get with Caleb Williams is a dude that wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's fiery. He is a grade A leader. Leading up to the draft, I was like consistently digging, waiting for something like negative to come out about his personality or like the background. There's the people that will have their quips about him painting his nails or wearing something out of left field for like a fashion shoot or something. But his teammates love him, absolutely love him. Like, we'll go to war any given day with him. And so, like, from that perspective, it's been great. But like, also, he's coming into a situation that's probably the best the number one overall pick has ever had, in my opinion. Not many quarterbacks that get selected first overall walk into a situation where he's probably going to have a top 10 defense in the NFL. He has 2 wide receivers that are Pro Bowl caliber. And then they also drafted Rome Odunze, who everyone gives the profile of a Pro Bowl receiver too. He has a Pro Bowl running back in the backfield that Detroit Lions fans are very familiar with, and DeAndre Swift. And he has 2 quality tight ends, and Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett, who they signed this offseason too. So it's a very positive situation to walk into. But I also kind of want to like pump the brakes on him a little bit too, because he is a rookie quarterback, and the Bears do have a new offensive scheme they're learning this offseason. And it's kind of a departure from the traditional Bears profile, if you will, because the Bears have always been a run first, defensive centric team. And they bring in a guy like Shane Waldron, who last year I think was 5th in the Seahawks were 5th in the NFL. And like pass plays, pass plays. Yep. I think they threw the ball like 62% of the time or something like that. So like, there's going to be a steep learning curve, not just for Caleb Williams, but also everyone else that's in this offense, because it's kind of a departure from the system they had last year.
Yeah, Eli, I appreciate you joining the show. Real quick, I did throw out there, Grand Valley guys, Saginaw Valley, go Cards. Have to throw it out there. I get it. I had to throw it out there.
I respect it. Guiac represent,
Oh yeah, always. I do want to ask you though, you're kind of in the, over there in the NFC North, obviously, and in the Bears circles. Two-part question. One, what is the perspective over there in Chicago and fans and that organization there of what the Lions have kind of built up the last few years with Brad Holmes? Because we did have a Packers beat writer on a couple weeks back, and he kind of went at Brad Holmes a little bit on our show here and was like, yeah, we really don't like what he's doing. Him taking all these random chances in the deep rounds, and it's kind of crazy. And then kind of leading off of that too, do the Bears feel like with the Packers and the Lions are doing that, this is a season right away with Caleb Williams that, hey, we can compete and win the NFC North?
So background on me, born and raised Jackson, Michigan, went to school on the west side of the state. I was a Lions fan growing up, so I still pay attention to the team pretty tightly. And I can say that a lot of people in Chicago view if they're not rooting for the Bears and they have to pick another team that they'll watch and say, let's see them have some success, it's the Lions. From my experience talking to Bears fans, they are still a rabid, avid fan base that has delusional expectations in my mind. Because this time last year, they were like, we're going to win 12 games. We're going to win the division. We're going to playoff game. I'm like, guys. If this team overachieves the team that went 7-10 last year, it would have been 8 or 9 wins because that's just the realistic expectation of where the roster was. And this year, like, it's the same deal. Like, you'll talk to a lot of fans that would be like, we're going to win 12 games, 13 games, 14 games. The division's wide open, yada, yada, yada. But like when you talk to the realists or I talk to other like sports professionals, journalists in Chicago, I think the idea is the ceiling or like what's realistic, I would say, for this team is probably 10-7 wild card. And you get to that wild card game and you can see what you can do because anything can happen in the playoffs. We saw those Packer guys go down to Dallas and hang 48 on the Cowboys. So like, you catch fire one day and you might win a playoff game, but that's kind of where this team is at. And as for where I see the Lions and a lot of people like the sports reporters and anchors that I work with, they see the Lions as like a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Like they should win the division. I think 12 wins is completely reasonable again, if not more. And I would say the one thing, there's two things the Lions needed to do this offseason. 3, I keep thinking. Upgrade the secondary. You did that with Enos Rackstraw and Terrion Arnold in the draft. You need a pass rusher opposite of Hutch, which I don't know if he's there yet. You got James Houston, which if he's healthy, I think he contributes. But also,
they don't got it, Eli.
Yeah, they don't. But like, they also need to replace Jonah Jackson, and you guys went out and got Kevin Zeitler, which I thought was a fantastic pickup and makes that O-line even more beefier than it already is. But yeah, so that's kind of the whole gist of where the Lions and the Bears stand in my mind and where I think.
Yeah, Eli, and thank you for joining the show. Kind of something sticking with the Caleb Williams narrative. I think something that any rookie quarterback needs in order to have some success year one is having a reliable running game. And I know you brought up DeAndre Swift, who most Lions fans are very familiar with, but they're not a running back that they're scared of due to his injury history. But Roschon Johnson, I genuinely do like. I liked him coming out of college. He obviously doesn't have a lot of wear on his tires backing up Bijan in college. How is this backfield going to shape up? And do you think it's going to be one that Caleb Williams can lean on when he needs to?
I think that's the entire plan with Caleb. Like, I think Ryan Poles entirely wants to have a well-rounded system, a defense that will get the ball back in the offense's hands, but also like have a very reliable running game. And like Roschon Johnson coming out of Texas, I think that was kind of the sleeper pick of that draft for the Bears. I liked him a lot too coming out of Texas, just because he has plus athletic traits, plus burst. He's a bigger back, and he didn't have tread on the tires because he was behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. It's going to be like a 3-headed monster in the backfield for the Bears. Like Swift will be the feature back, because in terms of just like physical talents, he's, I would say, a step ahead of Khalil Herbert and Roschon. But each back offers their own piece to this offense. I see DeAndre Swift as the third down back that's versatile. You can probably run him outside, have him run a variety of routes in the route tree. He can handle the ball himself too. His running vision is there's highlights out there of him not being able to hit a hole that I remember in Detroit. But like then Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson can be more of your thumpers inside, and you can just rotate them in and out and keep each other fresh. And they should be able to be relied upon in that sense. And beyond DeAndre Swift's health issues, because that is always going to be an issue with him, like the Bears' offensive line too is something that I kind of have a question for. Or like their best lineman is Tevin Jenkins, who also can't stay healthy. And then you have Darnell Wright at right tackle, who I think did good as a run blocker, but he needs to develop as a pass blocker himself. There's like pieces there, but like ideally, if you talk to like Bears faithful, they're going to be like, yeah, we're going to have a good running game, and we won't have to like rely on Caleb throwing like 35, 40 times a game. And if everything goes right, you're going to see a lot more of not only DeAndre Swift, but I think Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson. They're each going to get probably in the realm of like 8 to 12 touches each a game, and it'll fluctuate based on who's doing well. But that's kind of the picture.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, what do you also think about just sticking with the offense and there? Obviously, the wide receiver room with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and now Rome Odunze. We were talking about a couple segments here before you hopped on. We were talking about the wide receiver market getting set, and now Keenan Allen. His contract is up after this season. DJ Moore only has 2 years left. Is that something like kind of for the future of the Bears? Because we've talked about before how they have spent some money, kind of went all in a little bit on some trades the last couple of years. Ryan Poles has, and now like it feels like maybe this is the year. Like, hey, you guys got to do something because I don't know if you could pay Keenan, Rome, and DJ Moore in the future. What is that kind of aspect and that outlook there in Chicago?
I think they were always set on Rome at 9. Not just because of the profile he has as a talented wide receiver, but he's kind of a safety net too because of the Keenan Allen contract situation. Like you look at a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown getting paid for the Lions. I forget the details on his contract off the top of my head. I think it was 4 years, 120. If that's right,
about 30 per. About 30 per.
Yep,
about 30 per. So, like, you have a guy like Keenan Allen who came off a career year last year, and he still missed 3 games. He had 90 catches, 100 catches for like 1,200 yards, something like that. And ideally, like, he's the type of player that will give you that every single year. And if I'm him, I'm looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract and then going back to Ryan Poles and being like, hey, if I play 16 games, I can give you 100 yards or 100 catches and 1,500 yards. That's going to be the benchmark of what I want. So the Bears, Ryan Poles, and like Kevin Warren in the front office have to find that happy medium with where they want to pay Keenan Allen, because I guarantee you they'd like to keep him around. But it becomes a money issue of how you balance the rest of the roster. And Rome Odunze is kind of that safety valve to like pick up Keenan Allen's production if it doesn't end up panning out in the long run.
Yeah, and Eli too. And for me, at least, I'm a big I advocate for offensive coaches. I think that's where the NFL is going. I think you especially look at young quarterbacks. I think the best pairing is a rookie quarterback and an offensive head coach. That's just what you've been seeing. Now the Bears are there's the other angle of it, which if you have a defensive head coach, i.e. D'Amico Ryans, but you have Bobby Slowick, who is a really good OC, they make it work. What's kind of the narrative in Chicago with Matt Eberflus? Because at least here on the show, we think, hey, this is make or break for Eberflus. At least for me, with Caleb, just looking at Chicago, you're thinking, okay, you have a great offense, you have a great defense. And Eberflus last year started to come along. But what do Bears fans think of Eberflus? And what do you think the leash is on a guy like that? And how much pressure he's under to just show some progress this year? I mean, if they win 6-7 games, Eli, I can make an argument he's gone regardless.
I think so. I go back to I think Eberflus has the locker room, has a strong feel for his players, and I think his players play hard for him. And the game I use as evidence for that is the Minnesota game in Minnesota last year. They beat the Vikings 12-10. They didn't score a touchdown. It was 4 field goals. Justin Fields throws a 45-yard dart to DJ Moore to put them in field goal range to knock it in near the end of the fourth quarter, yada yada. But it was a slugfest, ugly, boring football game where you really had to scratch and claw to pull it out. And if Eberflus doesn't have the locker room or his players don't believe in him, at that point in the season, you're not going to win a game like that. So, like, I think he has a little bit longer of a leash based on how his players play for him, but there's that aspect. So then moving over to the offensive side of things, he doesn't touch the offense. It's all Shane Waldron's control. He's a defensive-minded coach. He'll call the plays on defense, but he gives a lot of leeway for Waldron to establish the system that he wants to put in.
Right.
And with that being said, also, if you talk to the old heads of Chicago sports media and you ask them about the most cursed position in all of Chicago sports, a lot of them will tell you it's the offensive coordinator position for the Chicago Bears because they can't figure out how to put a freaking run or a passing game together. So, like, let's say if Caleb Williams week 1 goes out and he throws like 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 interceptions, the city will burn. Chicago will be on fire. It's going to be the same old Bears, kind of like how people are with the same old Lions, like before Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes came. Because like that's something that I would say the two fan bases have in common. The Lions, just in terms of like historical, like a lack of historical success. With the Bears, it's a lack of historical quarterback play. They can never get that right. So like there's this like Stockholm syndrome effect. If Caleb Williams doesn't go out and perform well right off the bat, I think there's going to be a sect of like 30-40% of Bears fans are just going to, riot in the streets. Not literally, but like they're going to be that level upset. And you go on Twitter after the game and it's the sky will be falling, essentially.
How much confidence? I was real quick. How much confidence does the Chicago fan base and the people in the building have with Shane Waldron coming over from Seattle? Is there like a sense of like, hey, he can turn this around? Because we've talked about it a couple times on the show. Him some success in Seattle, and like, can he do that in Chicago?
I think they're moderately optimistic about Shane Waldron. I think he buys himself a lot of fanfare just based off the fact of what he's done with Geno Smith. Geno Smith comes into Seattle. He's a journeyman backup. No one really sees anything in him as like a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. Gets in the Shane Waldron system, and then he turns into this guy that throws for 4,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, which if Caleb Williams does that in Chicago, it's the greatest season in Bears quarterback history, quite literally. Right now, the benchmark for that is Eric Kramer in 1995 for the Bears threw 3,838 yards and 29 passing touchdowns, which are both franchise records for a single season. So I'm different from fans because like I have to like look at this through a lens of like without bias or fanfare to a certain extent. So like if Waldron's system goes in and Caleb Williams throws for 3,600 yards and 20 touchdowns, like 15 picks, I would call that a win for his rookie year. But like I think the fans aren't really ready to bust out the pitchforks just yet. Even if it like goes bad, like right off the bat at the beginning of the year, I think they'll be a little bit patient with them.
Definitely dark days when the GOAT of your quarterback era in Chicago is Jay Cutler. But kind of switching over the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Johnson burst onto the scene last year. And I know his rookie year, he had a really solid rookie year, but then he kind of disappeared, and he had an all-pro season last year. Do you think there's going to be another player with Johnson playing at that level, Montez Sweat really stepped up, and TJ Edwards doing his thing? Do you think there's another player on this defense that can really stand out this year that not a lot of fans around the NFL know about?
I think that player is probably Jaquan Brisker, or they did add Kevin Byard too to the secondary. The secondary, I think, is the strength of the Bears defense. You're pretty strong all the way around. You have Jalen Johnson, who you can argue is one of the best cover corners in football. Jaquan Brisker is a big physical box safety that's going to give you 100+ tackles in a season. He's going to be an enforcer in the run game. Kevin Byard comes over from Tennessee with an all-pro background and the experience that comes with that. And I would also say like Tyreek Stevenson, the corner opposite of Jalen Johnson, is someone that has a lot of potential. He's 6'2", he's 205, he's got long arms, he's got like 34-inch arms. Yeah. He's great in single man coverage. The thing with him, and it's the thing that a lot of like rookie or young DBs struggle with, is just the adjustment from the college game to the pro game, because like how you get off at the line is different at the pro level compared to college. There's a lot more physicality you're allowed at the college level, but like he has all the physical intangibles of being a one-on-one cover corner that can play really well at the NFL level. So if you're looking for players to keep an eye on that create a little bit more buzz, definitely Jaquan Brisker in my opinion. And then it wouldn't surprise me if Tyreek Stevenson makes a big jump this year too.
Yeah, because I remember watching him at the U. He's just like, he reminds me of Xavier Rhodes, where it's just he's built to just, like you said, just put him one-on-one with anybody. He can cover any X wide receiver, but at the same time, he's just very aggressive, and that's what got him in trouble.
Well, Eli, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. You guys can check Eli out on X at the Pen of Eli, and keep up the great work, my friend. And hopefully we can talk to you when the season gets here. We can get an update.
Oh yeah. Anytime you guys want me on, just give me a little bit of heads up. I'm glad to come talk some Bears football, and we can all hopefully crap all over the Packers and the Vikings.
Well, we can split right there.
Yeah.
There you go. Eli,
Appreciate you, Eli.
Good talking to you.
No problem, guys. Take it easy.
Yep, always. And there you go. Eli Ong. You can check him out at WGN News. Digital sports writer, does great work. And, of course, he's a good friend of the program now. So shout out to Eli. Great conversation. And you know what? The Caleb Williams stuff, I did lead with Caleb Williams. I will admit that. I will.
You did. The people loved it though. They, you might as well get a Caleb Williams jersey at this point. I love hearing.
Hey. Well,
sorry.
Bears can lose they can lose every game this regular season. That's fair. All right. We can have it both ways. All right. Caleb Williams, fan of him. Bears lose every game this regular season.